tuning in to Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 15. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Olivier Bosman's projects. That's right, we brought some mystery to the house. Then we'll be reviewing Can You Ever Forgive Me, I believe, is the film we're looking at. So stick with us. We're going to break this into chapters so you can hop your favorite part. But now, on to the interview. Born to Dutch parents and raised in Colombia and England, Olivier is a rootless wanderer with itchy feet. He spent the last few years living and working in the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Sudan and Bulgaria, and has every confidence that he will now finally be able to settle down among the olive groves of Andalucia. Olivier, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So let's tell folks about Audio Mystery Theater. And before we jump into the specific shows, let's give them a broad overview of what your project's about.
So, Audio Mystery Theater, it's a podcast, audio dramas. They're all mysteries, and which I wrote myself. I have before I started doing Audio Mystery Theater, I wrote a series of mystery novels, and so bit by bit I'm adapting them into audio plays. But there are also some other stories that haven't been written as novels, which I'm also adapting into audio plays. So yeah, they're all mysteries. That's the common theme. Different kinds of mysteries, but they're all mysteries. They all have gay or queer protagonists. That's the other common denominator. And that's what it's about.
Well, where did you get your start as a creative writer and mystery teller?
Well, I've always been somebody who's always daydreaming. I've always had my head in the clouds ever since I was a child. So even then, I was always making up stories. It was inevitable, therefore, that at some point I would want to share my stories. Originally, I started out wanting to be a screenwriter and a playwright. And that's what I spent about 20 years doing, writing screenplays and writing plays and sending them off to production companies and getting them rejected. What I liked about writing that way is I just like writing. I like telling a story in dialogue. But yeah, I wasn't getting anywhere with it. I still had stories that I wanted to tell. So then I started writing novels and self-publishing them. That was a way of getting my stories out there. And I did that for 8 years. I think I've written about 10 books. But well, you're both writers, aren't you? So it's hard work.
It is.
Writing a novel. You always start very confident. You're always enthusiastic at the beginning, but halfway through you lose confidence. You don't know where you're going with the story. Everything you plotted so carefully at the beginning is now gone. It's quite stressful, really. You have to push yourself to write. It's not much fun. And what I've always enjoyed about writing from the very beginning was writing dialogue. That's what I liked. Not all the descriptive passages, not all the action scenes. It's just the dialogue. Just tell the whole story through dialogue. And that's why audio dramas are ideal for me, because the audio drama is told through dialogue. You've got music and you've got sound effects which enhance the story, but the dialogue is plots in the dialogue. So yeah, we're now in a time where all this kind of thing is possible. Back in the 90s, when I started writing, I couldn't possibly make an independent audio drama. But now we've got internet, we've got software which you can download for free to edit the scenes. You've got actors with sound booths in their home who are willing to record lines for you. You've got internet in order to where you can distribute. People are listening to podcasts on their mobile phones. Now is the right time to do it, and so that's why I've switched. I haven't entirely given up on writing novels, but this is just more satisfying to me. So
was there
think with AI, you can have Kate Blanchett, be one of your voices, because now they've done that.
No, don't steal actor likenesses. No.
No, but I
well,
don't
he's
think
doing
AI
audio.
is that far yet. Yeah, I think in the future maybe, but at the moment, I think if it's an audio book, if it's just reading out a passage, it's okay. But if you're required to act with emotions, I don't think AI is there yet. No.
But it's interesting because AI is going to affect all of us at some point. Whether you write, whether you're an actor, whether you're a content creator, it's something we all have to pay attention to because, I think the U.S. Here in the U.S., the Copyright Office has just started issuing new policies around AI and what is considered copyrightable and what is not, and so it's going to start to affect every creator out there.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I've discovered AI generated images to make covers. It's fantastic, but I feel sorry for all the graphic designers and illustrators whose job is under threat. And again, with actors, I'm sure in the future we'll get that far. As far as writing is concerned, though, AI can copy things that are in that genre. It'll look things up on the internet and it'll copy it. But to write something really good, if it's not necessarily generic, but if it's just something that's about what it is to be human, I don't think AI will get there. Not in my lifetime anyway.
Right.
So as a writer, I don't feel under threat. But yeah, if I was an actor or if I was an illustrator or a graphic designer, yes, certainly.
Got to keep our eyes on it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So I was going to ask, is there a moment, or was there a moment in your writing career where it was a lightning bolt of, hey, I could create audio dramas, or was it more of a slow build and investigation?
No, it was a lightning bolt. It was something I always wanted to do, and I just didn't have the opportunity. And then I thought, I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure it's possible now. And this was after COVID, when loads of people started working from home, and even I got a job where I was working from home and communicating on Zoom meetings and all that with my colleagues, and everything is possible now. You can do everything from home now. So that's when I started. So that's when I started investigating the possibility of doing audio dramas, and I know people who were doing podcasts from the living room. Well, I guess like you guys probably. So it was. It's quite recent. I thought it must be possible, and I looked into it, and it's surprisingly easy, actually. Yeah.
Nice. Should we dive into some?
Go ahead. I just want to say, and there's a great history behind doing audio storytelling in this manner. Not only did we have it back in the radio era, before we had television and movies and all that stuff, but even before then, in pubs and in history, people used to go and listen to people tell stories. So it's something
absolutely
that fits very well with humans. I just wanted to ask real quick, when you settled on mysteries and doing it that way, was it because you've also seen we've seen the rise in like true crime and mysteries that are told in podcasts, that you decided that was the vein you wanted to go in, or was it because your works were already in that vein?
That's right. It's the latter. I'd already written mystery books, and I already had a bit of an audience to do mysteries. So I already had a lot of mysteries ready written, which now need to be adapted. So that's why I decided to do mysteries. But mystery is also a genre which appeals to a lot of people. So I'm sure there's a great audience for there, especially on radio. I think mystery really works well as an audio drama.
It really does, because it taps into one of the most powerful tools you have, and that's your listener's imagination.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Should we dive into a couple of the stories you have out there available for people?
Yeah. It's it's quite new. I've only just started. I haven't even been doing this for a year, so it's less than a year since I started them. So there's 2 stories on there right now. The first one's called The Honey Trap, and the second one's called The Story of Agnes Bregman. And they're all noir stories. So one of the books that I wrote before I started doing audio dramas was a book called Gay Noir, which was an anthology of 3 different noir stories, each one with a gay protagonist. So that's why the first 2 of them, because they were short stories, I thought, these are good starting points for me. Rather than making a very long series, I'll just do 2 short stories to start with and learn the ropes. So they're both noir stories, so that means they're kind of darkish. So The Honey Trap was the first of the stories in the anthology. So I wanted a typical noir stories. So when people think of film noir, they think of maybe Humphrey Bogart in The Maltese Falcon, this cynical, sleazy detective, that private detective that you don't really like, but you kind of like not liking him.
Right.
So somebody who's
Right.
not nice, but still is unkind in a nice way to watch. And so that's how I came up with Felix Stone, who is the protagonist. He's a private detective who gets hired by a woman to chase or to shadow her husband, who she thinks is having an affair. She wants proof of an affair, the usual story. But then there's a twist, and this was inspired by a real life case in 1960s. A spy called John Bassel. He was a clerk in the embassy in Moscow, and he was lured by Russian agents into a gay orgy and photographed and subsequently blackmailed. So that was the Hun trap. So it was inspired and based, well, very likely based on that story. But so it's an espionage thriller, really. The private detective thinks he's got an open and shut case shadowing a husband, but without knowing, he kind of gets pulled into this whole espionage thriller. So
Nice.
that's the first one. And the second one, the story of Agnes Braitman, was inspired by a British TV show called The Singing Detective. Have you ever heard of it?
I've not.
No. Okay, well, it was back in the 80s. It's a zeitgeist in Britain. I think it was British people, from at least those who were around in the 1980s will know of it. It's written by a famous British playwright or writer, Dennis Potter. I think there was an American film version made of it, but it wasn't very successful, with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. The Singing
Really?
Okay.
Detective. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, the story was about a detective fiction writer who was hospitalized, and in hospital he is still writing his book. And it tells two different stories at the same time. Actually, it tells three different stories at the same time. He is in hospital, so that's the story of him in hospital. There's the book that he's writing, which we also see played out, and then there is his childhood, which is thinking about. And each of these stories has a mystery in them, and at the end, it all kind of comes together.
Gels.
And that's what I liked about it. So with the story of Agnes Brightman, I also have two stories. There's a writer, Fitz. He's a posh guy. He comes from a privileged background, but there is some mystery to his past that he wants to forget and that he wants to run away from. So he's moved to the East End of London, which is the poorer, the working class part of London, and he's living with the delusions of being an impoverished writer, the romance surrounding being an impoverished writer. And he tries to fit in, and he starts speaking with a Cockney accent, and he tries to fit in as a Cockney, doing very badly. And he meets this guy. So he spends his time writing in the pub, and the other people in the pub, they watch him and they wonder what he's doing. So one guy comes over to him, asks him what he's doing, says, I'm trying to write a book. And he says, you should write about me. I saved the life of two Jewish girls during the war, and it's a great story. So he starts telling him his story, and it's a utterly fantastic story. It's complete lies. And the main character, Fitz, knows that, but he's attracted to the guy, so he continues with it. So as he's writing the story, we then get flashbacks to what actually happened. So there were two Jewish refugees that did stay in the house of this Roy, of this Cockney character. But the real story of Agnes Brightman is not the story that he is telling, and that slowly unfurls. So those are the two that are on right now. And I've got another one coming up, but I don't know if you want me to tell you about that one.
Sure.
Just don't spoil it for anyone.
Oh, right. So the third one is a Victorian Gothic mystery. so out of the 10 books that I wrote, 7 of them are part of a series called the D.S. Billings Victorian Mysteries. So it's set in late Victorian times, and it's about a Detective Sergeant Billings, who has to solve crimes. So all 7 books, kind of like Sherlock Holmes, only not quite. And he is he's a gay detective, but obviously this is a time when homosexuality was criminalized. So he and on top of that, he's working in the police force, so it's extra problematic. He's also had a religious upbringing, so he's not very comfortable with his sexuality. So he's very tormented man. He's also had a traumatic childhood. He's also very socially awkward and introverted, and he comes across as aloof and arrogant. But in reality, he's just very standoffish because he's out of his comfort zone when he's with other people. And well, throughout the books, you see him slowly change and slowly getting more and more comfortable with himself. Each book is a different mystery. And the first of those is Death Takes a Lover, where he goes to a remote house in the Yorkshire Moors, a very desolate place in the north of England, where he has to find out what happened. A young man died in this house. You need to know what were the circumstances around his death. He has to speak to all the members of the house, all the members of the household, so all the staff, the butler, the maid, the cook, the mother, the sister. And gradually the mystery unfolds. Of course, they're all not welcoming. They don't want to talk to him. They all say, no, he just got ill and died, and that's it. And I don't see why you're interfering, and I don't see why you need to find out exactly what happened. But bit by bit, the story unfolds. So that's the one I'm working on now, and I'm waiting for the actors to send in their lines, and then I'll start piecing it together. And so that should be out before summer anyway.
Nice, very nice.
And well, all the other ones I'm going to do, I'll probably do all of the DS Billings ones bit by bit. As I said, I've got a whole catalogue of short stories and novels to adapt. So some of them which have never been published as short stories will just be original audio dramas from the off.
Nice. Where's the best place for folks to listen to your audio mystery theater?
If you're already a podcast listener, then it's bound to be on your podcast platform of your choice. Most people listen on Apple or Spotify, but it's on most
the usual platforms.
It's on the usual platform, but it's also on my website. So if you're not sure where to go, you can go to my website, or you can go on YouTube, where I'm also posting them on YouTube. Walking.
Nice.
Walking. Yeah, no, it takes a long time to walk somewhere, but you take in much more and you enjoy it more. And walking, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, you made it through the list. There you go. See, wasn't so hard.
So, in terms of what's coming up next, you shared that Death Takes a Lover is coming up on the podcast. Are you doing anything? Are you going to be at any conventions or meeting people?
No. I have no. Where I live in a rural town in southern Spain. I'm far away from everything, so no, I won't be. No, so after Death Takes a Lover will be another Felix Stone mystery, which I'm currently writing. So Felix Stone is the sleazy detective in the first audio drama, The Honey Trap. So that will be next. And after that, there's a science fiction story I started writing, so I hopefully will be able to do that, a science fiction mystery. And then there'll be more of Billings, and there'll be a lot of more audio dramas. I don't want people to wait too long and forget about me, so I need to keep adding to.
Yep. That's the problem. You have to keep it going.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Which social media platform is best for people to not only reach out to you, but also follow what you're doing?
So I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter, and I update those regularly. So Facebook or Twitter would be good if you would like to follow me.
We'll include those links here with this episode.
Very good.
Any final words of wisdom?
Oh my God. B, I had to get final words of wisdom.
Only if
Final
you want.
words of wisdom. What?
What was that, Paz?
So you're going to say
I
something?
just said whatever you want, if you want to
Oh,
do it.
okay. Final words of wisdom. I would say it's never too late to do what you really want to do. I've been
Perfect.
trying to do what I really want to do all my life. I never quite succeeded in the way that I wanted to, but I changed. I changed direction, you know, I still have. I still have hope that I will get to where I wanted to get from when I started writing. Um,
Lovely.
Well, and you know, pivot is the best way to keep a career going.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Olivier Bosman for joining us. Olivier, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Go follow the Audio Mystery Theater podcast because there's nothing like an old radio show to keep you interested. Now, on to our review.
Maybe I need to
It's
contact
review
Randy
time.
Rainbow and have him create a song for us. It's review time.
It's review
Okay.
time. Dun, dun, dun.
All right, kids. So this time around,
Grab your
we've got
popcorn.
a lesbian author true story. It's obviously with literary and dramatic license. But it is the true story of a
Dramatization.
lesbian author named Lee Israel who falls out of step with current tastes and she turns her art form to deception. And the movie we're talking about is Can You Ever Forgive Me? With Melissa McCarthy, Richard E. Grant, Dolly Walls, and a host of others. Dolly Walls. Yeah, Jane Curtin. That was one
Jane
of the reasons
Curtin.
why I wanted to recommend this one for you to watch, because I wanted to know how you were going to react to seeing, oh my God, Jane Curtin, she's still out there. Because that's literally my expression when I went to see it in the theater. Yeah, you could back then. Yeah,
And this
it
was
was in the before
pre-pandemic. You
time.
could go to theaters back then.
So I kind of like I like this movie. It's very different. And if people who, because Melissa McCarthy can be kind of I don't want to say controversial, but she can be a divisive type of performer. You either really like her or you don't.
Yeah.
But I found this to be a very different
Yeah.
performance for her. So, what are your general thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, one, to dovetail on that, I love when hyper
Mm-hmm.
stereotyped and typecast actors get to do something completely different. And Melissa McCarthy is typecast as the comedic absurdist. She will drink ketchup on screen right from the
Right.
bottle. I mean, there's a Saturday Night Live skit, I think, where she douses
Bridesmaids,
herself in
yeah.
ranch dressing. In bridesmaids, dresses, whatever. Yeah, she has the wonderful "It's Coming Out of Me Like Lava" scene. So she is very typecast as a humor and comedy actor, and in this, she is not. You can see her comic timing in the way she delivers the acid wit of the
Rather
character,
sad.
but this character is not comedic. This character is a white collar criminal. Yeah, and doesn't like
Yeah.
people and therefore spirals into a life of loneliness and sadness. And
Yeah.
Melissa portrays that. And she portrays a character who doesn't like herself. So, like I said, I love it when I get to see a typecast actor
Yeah. Yeah.
step out of their box
I
and say,
liked
no,
it
this is what I
because
can really do.
of the obvious true nature or the basis for the story for the film. And one of the things I really liked about it was the
Mm-hmm.
literary portion more so than the deception of what she was driven to. Um, I like the fact that it really showed how hard it is for authors to make it. And that as anything, and you know this very well because you work for a publishing house, as with anything, it's all about the money. And if you aren't driving funds, making money, then what good are you, at least from the business standpoint? So is that, it's not show art, it's show business, kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Jane Curtin's character sums it up to her really well, where she's talking about why Lee Israel isn't the
Right.
hot ticket right now, and she points out other authors play the game and Lee Israel does not.
Right.
And there is a game to it. There are steps an author
And,
has to do.
And in
Lee
fact,
Israel did not
on
want to do
IMDb,
them,
one of the quotes they
she
pulled
did not
from it
like the
is
people.
Marjorie's line: "You can't be an asshole you can be an asshole if you're famous. You can't be unknown and be such a bitch, Lee." That sums it up right there. And I think what's interesting about it is that when authors hone their craft and they actually have some minor success and they're trying to figure out how to capitalize on that, but still write to a passion they have, and then don't realize the market has moved somewhere else, that it makes it harder for them to adapt, because especially someone like Lee in this case, because she's so immovable. The world is operating against her from her point of view all the time. And so even when she has a brief moment where something happy could happen to her, she immediately finds a way to shut it down. I think Richard E. Go ahead. Yeah.
Are you talking?
Yeah.
Were you talking the dinner with Anna specifically on that one point? I saw
I'm
that,
sure
but
that's
also
part
wondered
of
if
it.
she shut it down because of what she was doing at that point, her criminal activities.
And I found it interesting, Richard E.
didn't want Anna
Grant's
to find out
character
about that.
in the story, who's, questionable as far as whether he's likable or not. But it's interesting that the two of them found each other and were kind of compatriots in a miserable sort of existence in a weird way, misery loves company, that whole line, kind of thing. And I found that fascinating to watch the disparity or the despair in each of their tangents of their lives, and how they came together, but they still each had their own sorrow and regrets and whatever to deal with. And sometimes that collided between them. And at other times, it provided emotional support on some level. And I think it's interesting that a gay man and a lesbian woman who have these rigid kind of ways of living, despite the fact that they know that it's unhealthy for them, still pursue and are driven to keep going down that road that's only getting bleaker and bleaker the further they push into it, and it kind of, for me, was a big character study on why people make some of the bad decisions they make and don't really learn from it, or don't take, because to learn from it requires effort. And I think a lot of people think, oh, why can't it just be easier?
Yep.
Why can't I just have this? And that whole life is hard thing, and they're just not over it, So I just found it a very interesting movie. Jay and I felt really intimidated in that, because it was filled with a bunch of lesbians in the theater with literally plaid shirts like you're wearing. So we were like the only two gays, and then there was this one little gay boy who came in and sat 2 rows in front of us. Now, it was a much smaller theater, so it wasn't like it was one of the big theaters, but it was like, it wasn't necessarily closet size, but it was more like, big living room size theater, and at one of those multiplexes. And there was Jay and I, there was a straight couple in the row in front of us, and then the row in front of them were like, I don't know, 12 lesbian couples as lumberjacks. And then this little gay boy who came in, who sat immediately in front of Jay and I in the next row. And it was just the weirdest combination of people. And that boy was just a femboy from word go. So it was just the weirdest collection of people to watch this movie. And in a way, it kind of was representational of the movie itself in some weird way. Just that mix of people is just like, what? Do you have anything else to add? Especially authors. I think authors should see it.
It was an interest.
Yeah.
Authors and actors, because
it was
a
lovely
weird
to see
intersect of the two professions.
I really like her. I've always liked her. Anyways, okay, on to our ratings. You first.
Mine were pretty easy. It was 4s across the board. It was, at its core, a story about people who aren't nice to other people. And I don't... In our dark world, sometimes I'm like, I want something with a little bit more joy, please. But it was very well done. It was a very cool story. The fact that it was taken from reality gave it some credence for me. And the thing I loved the most, at the end credits, they were rolling the credits on one side and then typing out facts and trivia on the other side of the screen. So you got to see how did Jack Hawk's life evolve after that. You got to see something Lee Israel said to the clerk of courts when she was selected for jury duty. Little snippets of trivia that honestly brought me the joy at the credits. So I gave it 4s across the board. It was very good. I recommend it. It wasn't the brightest cinema. It wasn't mind-bogglingly intense, and it certainly wasn't a mystery to unravel. You knew what was going on.
Mine's are 4s across the board too. I probably would nudge up the cast to 4.5 just because I think it was appropriately cast. Even though you had a gay man and a lesbian woman, the sexuality wasn't the biggest part of it, only in the fact that they were marginalized people. And that is where the factor played in, and how that you kind of watch it and you think, maybe if they weren't so marginalized, maybe their success would have been different. So it almost is a cautionary tale in that respect of what, as a society, we get wrong, in a way. So, but yeah, so I agree with you. 4s across the board. Definitely a movie to watch. I don't know that it's a repeat watcher, but it is definitely a movie to watch. It is interesting. It's fascinating also on the whole aspect of this trade and sale of memorabilia and stuff. It kind of gives you a glimpse into that world and how you have all of these famous people who rate and certify things, and then it really points out they don't really know what the fuck they're talking about half the time. So it's kind of because all they see is dollar signs when they see something come across, and they think, oh geez, this looks almost totally, this could be really legit, and if it is, big ass money, and it just shows to the greed that drives all of this. Whether you're an author, whether it doesn't matter. It's all about business, all about money that drives it, and how people will compromise. And I think that's really the message of the movie: how much humans are willing to compromise in order to have that slice of the wealth pie, kind of thing. So, anyways, okay, people, go watch it. We recommend it. And moving on to, what are we on about? Okay, so what are you on about this week?
Well, since I've got some family stuff going on, so I needed something completely non-invasive and humorous and just sort of brain candy to watch. And so I asked around a bit, and somebody said, oh, on the Netflix, there's a show called Cunk on Earth, C-U-N-K. It got me. The premise is she is doing a commentary.
Philomena Cunk?
Yep. She's doing a commentary on human history. And it is the best satire imaginable. I had to explain it to somebody.
Even historians love it.
Oh, yeah. And I had to explain it to somebody, and I said, it's Terry Pratchett and television. It's exactly how he looked at society and its craziness and its inconsistencies. and pointed it out in such a dry wit that
Yeah.
she says things in the show, and 3 seconds later the bomb goes off in your brain that she just said that thing, and you're like, what did she just say about that piece of history? What is her fascination with Michelangelo's David's butthole? What? It's 5 episodes. It requires like zero commitment. They're a half hour each. Each one sort of covers a really broad span of time. She kind of sort of dips all over the planet, mostly focused on Western culture, but some tips into the Eastern culture. All of it irreverent and also wickedly insightful. Like,
Yes.
she gets to the point about the invention of guns, and the questions that she asks the experts are really insightful, flavored with a comedy veneer.
Yeah.
So I've been surprisingly happy with it, and initially thought I would hate it. And I was very wrong. I was 100% wrong.
Okay. So what I'm on about leads into who won my week. Although I do have an honorable mention for who won my week right out the gate. I'm just going to say the Manhattan DA. Thank you for finally nailing this idiot to the wall for an indictment. So all of this is going to be interesting tomorrow. But so that's my honorable mention. We'll put that aside. What I'm on about this week is the rise of a bunch of celebrities who have come to the queer community's defense in the state of Tennessee. We've had Vanessa Williams out there at the GLAAD Awards saying drag queens are not murdering people, so it's kind of like, what the hell are you people doing kind of thing. Even Reba McEntire, who is famous for not getting confrontational about anything. She has one of the best lines that I've ever read, and where she says, I try to stay away from disagreements and confrontations, she said. She said, despite this belief, she doesn't see how supporting drag queens could be controversial to anyone. Boy, why? I mean, we got real problems in this country, and to be worrying about men wanting to dress up as women, God bless them if they want to wear those high heels. I feel for them. But let's center our attention on something that really needs attention. I'm like, amen, girl. Moving on, kind of thing. I just loved it. And then in relation to that, this is who won my week. A federal judge in Tennessee has temporarily blocked the state from enacting that law, siding with the Friends of George, a Memphis-based LGBTQ plus theater group, issuing a temporary restraining order against the law, which would criminalize adult cabaret entertainment in locations where it could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. And so it's nice that the courts, and this is actually a Trump appointee, so even though Trump may have appointed them, a good majority of them, they're not all like that twit in Florida who just went ahead with anything Trump wanted to do. Miss Eileen Cannon, I'm speaking about you. And so I kind of like that, there are some jurists who may have a conservative bent, but they look at the law and they see what's the right thing to do. And so the federal judge in Tennessee that has blocked it, I say bravo. So who won your week?
I think we were sharing it. Because we both, in the pre-show, we both talked about the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I just find it refreshing that people that you think might just automatically do something because they're on one side of the aisle or the other, they surprise you and go, no, the right thing to do is this. And you kind of go, it's like you have all this darkness happening, and then you get this one spark of light.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of go, gee, there we are. We can do things right, and it gives you hope, but at the same time, it is a well of frustration because those should be the norm, not the exception,
right?
Kind of thing.
Right.
We got to be working on that, people. That's my sage wisdom for this week. Work on trying to do what's right, not necessarily what's easy.
Right.
Those lesbians.
What?
Those lesbians in the theater at Petaluma were real lumberjacks. They weren't playing.
For those of you who didn't hear my husband, he just wanted me to add as a commentary that the lesbians who were in the theater that looked like lumberjacks were real lumberjacks. They weren't playing. It wasn't a cosplay. And considering it was up in Northern California, it's entirely possible. No, but people definitely go check out our rote reactions. It is something that I'm finding a lot of fun with Albert. It's wonderful because we have that combination of he is not so knowledgeable about queer cinema history, and I have watched a lot of these that we've already watched. So I get kind of that dual perspective of someone who understands and knows this and knows a lot of the trivia and the behind the scenes kind of stuff, and someone who is experiencing it for the first time. You get to see those two responses and that dialogue. So I think it's a nice way to see movie reactions. And, you know, I do put up the full unedited versions up on Patreon. So it's a good reason to help us support the whole project. It helps us keep the lights on. We're giving you something a little extra for fun. It's definitely worth it, we think. So definitely tune in for reactions.
Bravo. Anything else you want to share?
No, that's all I got.
All right. Folks, Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts from new episodes, and tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Check out our rote reactions too.
Bye, kids!
What's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.